just acquired a 11-foot wingspan dragon that lights up and flaps its wings.
11 foot. Where is that
you,
going?
Lauren? I
It's
think that's
going up.
Lauren.
It's going to the Halloween display at the Lake Hill Firehouse.
Oh, very nice.
You saw it on Facebook.
And had to have it.
They wanted $30 for it. She called. The lady evidently likes my poetry, so she said it was $20. And she found out it was for the firehouse, so she gave it to her.
Okay. That's pretty good.
She said she ordered flower pots and they sent her the dragon. And Amazon said they didn't want it back.
Did you get the flower pots?
Eventually, I think she had to reorder them, but
I have to say Amazon's pretty good. If they mess up an order, they take care of you pretty well.
Yes.
yeah.
I think the town recently, we ordered something and they sent the wrong thing and they said, just keep it.
Yeah.
They usually pay for a return, so it's probably cheaper for them to just give it to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Nissan Leaf.
What's that?
The Nissan Leaf out there.
Yes.
Was that number picked, car 54?
Where are you?
Yeah.
I forget exactly what that. I think we had a 54. I think it replaced the 54. Hello, Laura.
Hi there. I've just unmuted. Hi there.
Hi, Laura.
Stink bugs all over the office.
Oh, they were everywhere today.
It's time they come in.
Yeah. I've chased about 5 of them out of here.
It's crazy.
What's in the office?
Stink bugs.
Oh, you're talking about your town board members who were there earlier today to sign vouchers?
I know. Something made
No,
it
we
stink.
call them something else.
Yeah, you shoot us out of the office too.
I see I'm just in time for the insults. Okay.
It was Laura that threw it though. I only agreed.
Oh, no, I didn't hear Laura do that. I heard
Yeah.
don't attack Laura now.
I'll claim innocence.
Who are we waiting for on the board? Just Reggie.
Is
Reggie.
Lauren already on?
Is Maria Elena coming
there's
or is
Lauren.
she on?
She's on.
I saw Maria Lana.
Maria
It's
Lena's
funny
on.
because I guess I'm in the wrong view. I'll go back to gallery view because now I can see everybody.
Lori. Yeah, it's just Reggie. Is it 7 o'clock yet? No. Couple
no,
minutes.
Reggie's got 2 minutes.
He's
Oh,
got
boy.
2 minutes. Ash is on. Teresa's iPad. Is that Terry Reynolds?
I believe so, yes.
Is it running?
Somebody's calling me. I don't know if it's Reggie or not. Hold on.
Now we broadcast. Gavel, gavel.
What's that?
Now we broadcast like gavel.
Okay, so you don't.
We have anybody from the press on?
Felicia is here in my office.
I
Okay.
don't see anybody on the meeting yet.
Woodstock 104.1 FM. Is that Reggie, Richard?
Nick Henderson's coming in
Okay.
now, Jackie.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, that was Reggie. He's having his laptop is having a few difficulties and he asked that Ashley resend the Zoom link to him
Give me one
at his
sec.
Gmail.
Sounds like me a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, you're back off your. Are you on your iPod or your laptop, Jackie?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm on my phone.
Oh,
Just sent that over to him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you give me like 13 seconds to go grab a cord just in case my phone starts to die?
Go ahead.
All right.
Should we time her? Not only do I have stink bugs, but ladybugs too.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, I'm back in the room. Go ahead.
Okay, so I will call to order the town board meeting, the Woodstock Town Board for October 20th, 2020. Just a reminder, public be heard at the end of the meeting. If you enter your name into the chat for Ashley, 2 minutes apiece for the first 5 individuals to enter their name. And again, public be heard will be at the end of the meeting. A friend of ours, Fanny Prezant, was in yesterday, and apparently she had experienced, although she didn't fall for it, a potential scam that's going around. Apparently, they're using Central Hudson where the caller threatens to disconnect your service for non-payment. The scammer uses a Central Hudson caller ID number, so it'll pop up on your phone. It'll look like you are talking to Central Hudson. They will usually request you make a payment by prepaid credit card or debit card, I guess it is. Central Hudson will never make a request for a specific form of payment. And if you have any questions, you can contact Central Hudson if you feel that this is not a legit thing. You can contact them at 845-452-2700, 845-452-2700. And they'll be able to confirm whether there's any issues with payments. I could go to resolutions, but Lauren, you asked for a couple of minutes to discuss a WEC resolution that they sent to us, so I'll give you the floor.
Okay, I'd like to read the resolution. And whereas the property owner at 10 Church Road added at least 100 truckloads of fill and land directly abutting and topographically and hydraulically upgrade from the potable water well at 59 Reynolds Lane. Whereas the Woodstock Town Board and Environmental Commission, the statutory commission, received a request from the property owner at 59 Reynolds Lane to compel the town to take action and test potable water due to the recent addition a significant amount of unknown fill abutting their property. Whereas per a hydrology report recommend that the fill submitted by the contiguous property owner executed by an independent company, HydroQuest, dated August 26, 2020, sample collected be conducted by an independent qualified professional by an NYS certified laboratory. The analysis should include, but not limited to, testing for volatile organic compounds, VOCs, semi-volatile organic compounds, materials, metals, and asbestos. Whereas per the report, site visit done by Benier and Larios, PC, at the request of the town dated September 1st, 2020, sent to town and the building inspector, a recommendation was made, include, but not limited to, that the property owner at 10 Church Road be required to develop a slope stabilization plan prepared by a licensed professional engineer. The plan should include design for the slope with factor of safety of 1.5 or greater. Whereas there exist violations of zoning law and I believe town law, sections 192-4, B and C, illegal dumping of hazardous waste. No material of any nature could be considered to be hazardous, infectious, toxic, radioactive, harmful, or pollutant may be dumped anywhere within the boundaries of the town. The use of any land, including privately owned land within the town for dumping of non-compostable solid waste, is hereby prohibited. Whereas the zoning law on record with the town of Woodstock zoning enforcement officer to initiate a remedy on the site violation according to zoning law. And then it goes on to state the zoning law. Taking of emergency action, zoning enforcement officer, the violation that requires immediate action to avoid a direct hazard or imminent danger to the health, safety, or welfare of occupants of the building or to other persons. Zoning enforcement officer may direct such violations to be immediately remedied and may take action on his or her own to abate the hazard. Any cost incurred by such action shall be paid by the owner, occupant, or persons responsible for the violation. The zoning enforcement officer shall keep a file affidavit stating with fairness and accuracy the items and expense. Therefore, be it resolved, the town of Woodstock will hire and pay for independent qualified testing agency, not being a company owned or affiliated by a town employee, to complete the aforementioned water samples collection and analysis at 59 Reynolds Lane within 30 days, and periodically each calendar quarter for 1 year, then annually for a period of 3 years. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Woodstock will hire and pay for an independent qualified testing agency, not being blah, 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 to test the fill that was dumped on 10 Church Road in adjacent 59 Reynolds Lane. Therefore, be resolved, the Environmental Commission as a designated member of the commission will review the status of all environmental reports and tests done on 10 Church Lane for a period of at least 3 years. And then see if they make further recommendations. Therefore, be it resolved that the fill and water be tested in the same manner or performed by the same agency periodically each calendar quarter, and then for 1 year and then a period of 3 years. Therefore, be it resolved, the zoning enforcement officer shall keep the file and the fill test results in her office for a period of 5 years. That was drafted and approved unanimously by the Environmental Commission, with some input for some other people that it's a disaster up there. I've never seen anything like it. So
Couldn't agree
Can
more.
we get a second? Can
No,
we get a
that's-
second?
That's not a resolution.
Oh, it's not.
yeah, it is.
You're making that resolution?
I am.
Okay, I thought that was the resolution from the WEC.
It is. But
Okay,
I agree with it.
okay.
Are you offering it, Lauren?
I am.
Okay, because I'm confused here.
Okay, so Lauren has offered a resolution. I didn't realize we didn't have that as a resolution beforehand. Does anybody want to second that resolution?
I'll second for purpose of discussion.
Okay,
Reggie's got to unmute.
Yeah, go ahead. Richard seconded. Go ahead.
okay.
Oh, Reggie's here.
So, discussion?
Well, like I said, it's a disaster. I mean, how it happened, I can't even understand. But there it is. There it sits, and we got to do something about it. We got to test the soil, because if they're going to remediate any of it, if you don't know if that soil's dirty, where are you going to put it? Who's going to take it? It changes the ball game. It's the first thing that needs to be done.
Okay, well, the first thing I would point out that unfortunately, the New York State Constitution, Article 8, Section 1, I believe, prohibits us from expending public monies on private property. So unfortunately, our hands are tied. The good news is, though, that we did meet with the owner, Vince, who I believe I saw on this meeting tonight, and he has agreed to do the testing. And actually, he's preparing a lawsuit to sue the contractor who brought the fill in order to have the fill removed.
So he's going to pay to test the soil as well?
He's agreed to pay to test the water, which
Well,
our engine.
That's not what we need. We need to test the soil as well.
Dennis, our engineer, feels otherwise. And again, if we get
But
the soil,
he doesn't live there, does he?
no, Lauren, he doesn't.
Okay.
But
And-
he is our engineer.
Yeah, but it takes time for it to get into the wells. And so you're gonna just sit and let that happen?
Well, we're hopeful that we'll get it cleaned up before that happens, actually.
This is kind of like Trump's flu theory. If you don't test, you don't have it.
You know what? I don't think we need to throw insults at each other.
I'm not insulting anybody. I'm just pointing out that something's got to be done.
I agree with you.
I mean, it's been what, 8 months up there, and it's just it's unbelievable.
Well, unfortunately, it wasn't until June that it became evident of the construction debris. If you recall, I brought this to the board's attention in January when I was kicked off the property by the property owner, Gina Canigliaro, and told not to come back when I saw construction debris. But when the building inspector went up the next day, the construction debris was gone. Of course, I was up there at night in the dark, so there was no evidence that we could use to prove there was the debris. It wasn't until the washouts that it became very evident that the construction debris is there.
What about hammer them for illegal dumping?
They have been cited, and what we
Cited by whom?
by the building inspector for the, so there's no, just to be clear, there are no zoning violations. There's a violation of our solid waste law, which is section 192, or excuse me, chapter 192 of our local code. They have been cited for dumping construction debris. The town attorney, John McGovern, has been investigating this a little too long, I might add, unfortunately, but he has been looking into this because the fine for one dumping is not that high. The first fine is, for the first incident, is $250, I think, then $350, $450, and then it goes to $1,500. The problem becomes when we take it to court, we have to prove how many loads are in there. And
There's got to be 1,000 yards there.
how many loads of construction debris. You and I are in total agreement, Lauren. There's a lot in there, but knowing and proving in a court of law are two different things. However, there is a caveat in there that says that we can force a cleanup. And what the town attorney, the prosecutor has been looking into, and he feels confident now that we can force this, is that we will cite the owner for the dump and take him to court and request a cleanup. That
When
is,
you say, Bill, when you say cleanup, are you saying remove all fill?
yeah. Well,
Well, how do you know-
now that's going to be our position, and that's the owner's position as well, as he would like it removed.
Yeah, but how do you know? You can't remove it until you test it.
There are landfills that will take it and then they test it and dispose of it appropriately.
Can I just see if this is correct? So, Bill, you're saying that the landowner, Vincent,
Yeah.
will remove the fill?
Well, we can only do legal action against Vincent.
Right.
And so we'll have to proceed. Now, Vincent seems to be a cooperating individual here because he wants it removed as well. So ultimately, he's going to sue Carolus because it was Carolus that brought this fill in.
And you don't think we should test it then when we know who brought it up there? Given his
I think-
track record?
I think we should test the water to make sure that it's not getting into the water. And more likely, it will take time for it to get into the water. So this water test, according to the health department, the DEC, and our town engineer, this water test would be more likely to set the bar because none of them anticipate seeing anything in there right now. But the water test is much more, testing the soil, if you have 1,000 yards, unless you test every yard, you're not, there's no point to it. It's easier to dig it all up and take it out of there.
Who would you say is doing the testing? Who gets to call that shot?
It should be by the recommendation of the town engineer.
Not the landowner, the property owner.
It should be by the town engineer.
Can say it should be. Well, I mean,
That's my position.
Yeah.
I think that should be the town's position.
So what happens in the meantime? I mean, what's the timeline like if, we're saying the owner's going to do it? I mean, we don't have any, there's no way of us to enforce anything to push it, because he could say, I mean, maybe he will, but does he get to say, oh, I'll do it next month? I get to do it in December? How long does it just go? Is it an ongoing thing?
Hopefully the sooner the better. It's all got to work its way through the courts.
So Vincent isn't going to remove anything until after the court makes a decision?
Vincent's on. If Vincent wants to answer, he will. I
Okay.
can't speak for him, but
Okay. I'm just trying to figure this out.
yeah.
Do you want me to unmute Vincent?
Yes, we'll
he
see.
can raise his hand if he wants to speak.
Yeah, I don't see him on film, so.
Okay.
Vincent, if you want to join in the conversation, would you like to join in, Vince? Okay, go ahead and unmute Vincent.
Okay. Just gotta find him. Hold on one second.
It's under Gina.
Bill, I would also
Hello?
say, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll come back.
No, go ahead. You finish.
No, there's other people who would like to speak to
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
And I don't think we should wait to the end of the meeting to open this up.
No.
I don't know how you want to handle it.
Who's got the music on now?
That's my other phone going off.
Okay. So Vincent, you've heard the conversation. We met with you the other day. You're aware that you indicated you wanted the soil moved. We indicated we want it moved. Maybe you want to elaborate on your thoughts on what you're going to do?
Well, absolutely. We've kind of got taken by surprise on this entire project. Unfortunately, it's spilled into other areas, and we're in the process of trying to make this happen right now. As we spoke about, I am filing against Corollas. We didn't do our homework with Corollas, obviously. And here's where we're at. And unfortunately, it seems like the landowner is responsible. I'm a lighting and sound engineer. I really know nothing about dirt. I would assume that my contractor would know about dirt. And he's got the right licenses to do all of this work. We did check that out. But here we are. And all I can say is that we are on it. I don't want it to take a long time. I want it out.
Okay.
We're working with the town as close as I can possibly work.
Okay. And in the meantime, as we spoke the other day, we're going to move forward with charges against you. But that part of that is in hopes that will help speed up your suit with Corollas. Why don't we let Frank Amy, I believe he's under the name Aaron Amy, if you want to unmute him.
Yeah, I have a question for Vincent whenever it's a good time for question.
Okay, I think he's off now, so we'll give Frank the floor.
Well, oh, he's not muted or anything. There he is. It's him.
Frank?
Am I on?
Yep.
Okay, as you all know, my name is Frank Amy. I live at 59 Reynolds Lane, the property directly impacted by the illegal dump site at Penn Church Road. For reference, this fill is 23 feet away from my well.
Hold on, Frank, hold
I'm
on one
sorry,
second.
yeah. Hold on.
Ashley, could you just mute Vincent for a minute?
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Frank.
Okay, that's okay. For reference, this fill is 23 feet away from my well, and the material in question has since washed closer onto my property. Our primary concern is the possible toxicity and improper retaining of this massive amount of fill. This dumping started in January of 2020 upon the possibility of this fill containing construction debris. We notified the town supervisor's office. However, with no intervention, the dumping continued through July. On August 4th, due to excessive rain and no retaining wall, a large portion of the fill washed onto our property and threatened damage to our home. Desperate for some resolution, we contacted another town board member to inquire about the status of the investigation in September. We were informed that the town board had not heard about this problem. With the help of our neighbors, we hired an independent, reputable hydrologist. He wrote a report containing detailed recommendations for the action moving forward. Please note that this report was sent directly to the town office. These actions include proper material and water testing based on clear evidence of foreign debris and the implementation of an erosion control plan. Also in this report is outlined that this fill is in direct violation with a local zoning law, stating that no material of any nature which could be or is considered to be hazardous may be dumped anywhere within the boundaries of the town. Therefore, if the proper testing comes back unsafe, we require immediate removal of all dumped material. If the proper testing comes back clean, we require a suitable stabilization plan. Finally, I wish to know why the town board was not notified of this dumping. We could have avoided this problem if the town law was upheld. I see no excuse for the allowance of a very clearly illegal dumping of yet to be seen dangerous waste next to our water supply. Thank you very much.
So, Frank, I understand that you're very upset, and I feel for you because it's a mess. But to say that the town board hasn't discussed this is totally untrue. And if a council person said that to you, he wasn't being honest with you. And I doubt that council person actually said that. We have talked about this a number of times in executive session at town board meetings. I actually, if you go back to the town board meeting in January, it was I who found the dumping before I heard from you. And it was Gina Canigliaro, who I spoke to that night, who the next day told me not to ever come back to the property. And it was I who saw the construction debris that night. When Ellen got up there the next day, the construction debris was unfortunately buried at that point. And there was no proof and there was no ability to do anything about digging it up. There have been no violations of the zoning law. There has been a violation of the solid waste law, which was difficult to prove until back in the middle of the summer when the washout occurred and the construction debris became evident. And also the contractor actually admitted to the town attorney that there was construction debris there. So, and that's when they were cited back then.
The construction debris was coming all along, and it was clearly visible as it was being dumped all through the entire process.
The building inspector was up there numerous times, and it was always covered.
I beg to differ because I was here at the same time.
We can fight about that all day, but the point is, I think we all agree that there's a problem that needs to be cleaned up.
Right. And my whole point was it didn't really need to get to this point because now it's an inconvenience for everyone and an expense. So that's all.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but there wasn't a lot that the town board could do.
Oh, well, I guess you know that better than I do.
Right now, Frank has put something before us in terms of the hydrologist report. It seems like a reasonable, I don't know who this person is, but I assume it's reputable. And it seems to me, I mean, our obligation is to protect the health and safety and welfare of the citizens. I see the report is fairly straightforward. I don't know if there's any objection to it. I don't know how it coincides with the WEC resolution or even if it does, but it seems to lay out a plan by which we can go forward. So why don't we go forward?
The owner has to
No, that's not what the hydrologist says. Anything about the owner, about lawsuits or anything.
We are not in a position to do anything unless we get a ruling from the court.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
If you look at
You're going to cite the Constitution? Or,
no, the Constitution
or the state law?
No, I'm going to cite section 1992 where it looks at the fines. We can force cleanup of that. And if we prevail in court, at that point, we can take action to actually spend money to do the cleanup and levy it against the property owner. and the taxes.
Have we filed anything in court yet?
We are in the process of doing that.
Well, here's my final thought on this for tonight. If we don't pass this resolution, force it to happen, the good people up there in Shady are going to get an attorney, and they're going to bring a suit, and they're going to name the neighbor, and they're going to name the town.
Okay.
Correct? Okay, so now we're going to hire our attorney to defend us with taxpayer money. By proxy, he's going to be defending the people that dumped that stuff there. So now you're taking money from these people who've been dumped on, literally and figuratively, to defend the people that dumped on them. I don't want to be party to that.
We're not going to defend the people who dumped on them, Lauren.
If you defend ourselves, that's what we're doing.
I don't see it that way.
Well,
Seems like a lot of attorney fees here.
And so,
That could also pay for a test.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to cite whatever the law is. How does DEC get around to making tests?
they don't, they won't test it.
They don't make any tests anywhere?
They won't
Is that
test
what
it.
you're saying?
I've tried to engage the
No,
county.
no, that's not what I'm asking. Does
I've-
DEC test things anyplace else other than Woodstock? They do.
They won't test private water wells.
Well,
You know, I know we talked about this maybe last month, I think, but it just seems like if people can come and put something in the ground and cover it up and then no one can see it, they just get to put whatever they want to in the ground. And then we go, oh, well, we can't see it or we don't know. And from the report that we got from, I can't remember where it's from, who did it, HydroQuest, I believe, said that these things were from outside of the county. So we already are thinking that they're things that are in the ground that are not legal, or that are possibly, I don't know if toxic, I don't want to say toxic, but if the possibility is there, why wouldn't we be proactive? Since this is more than a neighbor to neighbor, it could affect those other residents. Why wouldn't we be proactive to address it?
Vince, you have your hand up. Ashley, if you could unmute Vince. Vincent?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Listen, can you guys give me a little time to put this lawsuit and thing? I'm behind you 100%.
What? How soon can you get the water test done?
My engineer is probably on the line with us right now. You know who I have hired. I think you've checked their credentials. A very reputable firm. I don't know if Jim is on the line right now, but we could get it done right away. Get this water tested right away. And the lawsuit's already been started. I think Mr. Corollas needs to basically take care of this entire mess. Get it out of there. Let him worry about where he's going to put it. Just get it off my property and get it off of Frank's property. And get his well tested so we can make sure his water's right. And I can test it next year too if he wants.
So can you make the water test happen in the next week?
I believe so. I'd have to talk with Mr. MacGyver, but I think we can make something happen. You've been in contact with him. You know he's for real.
Right. But he and Dennis are going to have to agree on who does the test and what we're testing for.
Well, didn't Larios recommend or say that he was okay with CT mail?
But CT mail actually won't do the testing. We need to engage they need to engage a testing company.
Right. They'll be on site though to make sure it goes down correctly.
Correct.
So
Yeah, I can make that happen right away.
are you willing to test the soil?
No, I'm not willing to test the soil because I don't think if the water's been affected, I think we're okay. It hasn't been there that long, and I just want to get it off the property.
well, but if it hasn't been there that long, eventually it will impact the well. And that comes from the soil.
Not if it's gone. How can it impact the well if it's gone?
Okay.
We're talking about taking it down to the first level.
I understand that, but the question is how long this takes.
I'm on it as fast as I can possibly get this thing into a courtroom. I am there.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions for Vincent. When you
Go
say
ahead, Laura.
when you say you're going to test the water, you testing your well or the Amy's well, or you testing runoff? What water are you testing?
I would test the Frank's well.
Okay. So
He's
you're testing
downhill.
the Amy
He's
well.
downhill from me.
Right. Okay. And I have the question I wanted to ask earlier, Vincent, is what exactly, when you saw these truckloads of fill coming to your property, what was your reason for allowing them, even not, I know you didn't know that there were contaminants in there, but did you expect it was clean fill and you wanted clean fill? What was your expectation when all these truckloads of fill came to your property?
Please understand that this house has been in my family 100 years. We would not even think about putting any polluted material on that property. It's sacred ground to us. This was just basically leveled to create a little larger lawn. And in retrospect, looking back at it, probably not a good idea. But in the interim, we were counting on our contractor. As I told you, I'm a lighting and sound engineer. I don't know what dirt is good or bad or indifferent. I count on my contractor for his professional expertise. Obviously, it didn't come on this project. This is why I have to go after him on a civil level.
Okay, thank you.
Maria Elena, I think you had a question?
Yeah, just a few times here, I wanted to just ask why wouldn't it be possible to test the soil simultaneously before it gets carted away? I understand that the water is going to be tested, but I feel that the soil should be tested as well. I don't know if that's at all possible. I hear what the owner is saying, that he is not going to test it, but I don't know if there's any other entity besides DEC or someone else that can come in and do a test.
Well, Bill raised the point that it was going to be, if you have all these yards of, how many hundreds or thousands of yards of material, how many spots you're going to test if you're going to test?
Well, I would test it where it collapsed on Frank Amy's property and water's running through it. I would test it there. Look, we know how lawsuits go. This is going to be forever in the courts.
That's right. Yeah.
And if the stuff is up there and it's dirty, that's not a good thing. And I mean, it's a ways, but it is uphill from our aquifer also, depending on what's in there.
I'm trying to read the different notes that I see popping up. You guys need to write in darker pen so I can read it.
There's plenty in the chat room.
From my understanding, to do the testing on the soil, since there's a considerable amount, is a very expensive venture in Toyland. I think that going to the source where everybody is most concerned right now is the drinking water, which is a very, it's a personal thing. You're drinking water, you're taking it into your body. I think that should be the first thing that's tested and to make sure that that is 100%.
The other indication that both or the engineer, the county, and the DEC have indicated is that you can test the water because that flows through the entire pile. It's going to pick up a much wider area. The dirt, you could test 1 square foot and 2 square feet over. You've got a toxic goop that's not getting tested. So there's the testing of the dirt. There's no guarantees. It's far too random.
But by that same thought process, the water that's running through all that dirt is running out into the soil that's on Frank's property.
Now, to be correct, there is no glowing green goop or anything like that. After careful analysis from my engineering firm, they're calling it basically commercial grade fill, which is something that is used on buildings, and that's supposed to be put into a home, an environment here, a private home type of situation. There's no glowing green matter. There's just basically large pieces of concrete. And the reason we're having this issue with the hill is because it can't be compacted so tight. And it was never compacted from the beginning. It was just put in there and filled and run over. It was absolutely the wrong way to do things. And I've had that from a number of engineers.
That we agree on. Yep.
We at least have to test the water that runs out of that gravel.
You want to test?
Well, I'm willing to go for the testing of the well, which I think is the most important part of the situation. I think that is where if there's a problem, that's where it's got to be, and that's where it should be clean.
That's where it's going to end up.
Yeah, the issue with testing
It
the
may
well.
not be there. Yeah, it may not be there right now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
the,
Mark.
yeah, the issue with testing the well now is there hasn't been a lot of, how deep is the Amy's well? There hasn't been a lot of time for the toxins to filter the way down there. And if I could ask the Amy's how deep their well is, we might have an idea. If it's a 100-foot well, it'll take a while for the toxins to get down there. So testing the well, just testing water only in the well might not be enough.
We can discuss that with Dennis and get his best opinion. I would be more comfortable letting him make the decision than us.
I would agree to that. I think it's time we call them the real professionals, because obviously we haven't had them yet.
Nobody disputes we need real professionals. What we're talking about is what we're going to have them do.
Well, we're going to ask them their professional opinion.
So I do see one, Vincent's engineer is on the line here. Jim, do you have anything you want to add? Ashley, if you could. Yep.
Sure. The sensitive receptor here is the aquifer that underlies Vincent's property. So anything that was in that fill material is going to end up in the aquifer, and his neighbor's well is the likely immediate threat in this situation. So testing the well is probably the most important thing to do. I will say, however, though, that based on the nature of the material, based on what I've read, that this material, it's not going to leach rapidly. So it's mostly heavy metals and some PAHs, and those things tend to stick to the grains of soil that they're attached to. And so they take a long time to migrate.
Right.
Really, the best thing to happen here is for that material to be removed from Vincent's property. And that is likely to take care of the whole problem. It would take a long, long time for that material to impact the aquifer at levels that you would actually detect it above applicable standards. We didn't see, in at least the results that I reviewed, any volatile organic material. We saw some semi-volatile organic material, but that's something called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that are typically associated with pavement. So there was some ground up pavement in that fill material. And so that's probably the one thing that we'd have to worry about if there was anything that's going to impact. The heavy metals aren't likely to go anywhere. They're very stable in the environment. It takes a lot to move them, you know, although in this day and age with acid rain, you know, that is a possibility, but not likely. So the PAHs are the main thing, but they're not very mobile either. They don't move away from where they're just disposed of very rapidly. They can, but not really rapidly. So the immediate risk is the drinking water well of the adjacent neighbor, because they create a cone of depression every time they use their well. So they're pulling the water towards their well. So we want to make sure that that well is not impacted. If that well is not impacted, you set up some regular scheduling of that well, you know, I'd say within 3 months, based on the leachability of the material, and then maybe again in 6 months, and then maybe again at the end of a year to see if there's any impact to groundwater. But one of the things that we recognized was this material should not have ever been placed there. It violated, you know, code. It violated a state 6 NYCRR Part 360.13. The contractor should have known this. He should not have used it where he used it. And so the person who's responsible for this is the contractor, and Vincent needs to enter into his lawsuit against the contractor. It's really that simple. And the only solution, and this would likely be supported by the DEC, is that that material would be removed from the site. The contractor may decide not to do it, in which case it becomes problematical, but ultimately, you know, they have resources. He has machines that are left on Vincent's property that are worth money. So, you know, the impetus is on him to get rid of that material in the end. The risks are moderate to low, just based on the nature of the material. We don't see any volatile organics, which is really good. So testing the well is the most important thing. After that, once the soil's been removed, then it's worth testing what's left, the clean soil, to make sure that it hasn't been impacted by the material that was placed on top of it. So that's what we've proposed to do for Vincent. We prepared something that we submitted to the city, but they came back and asked for some revisions on that. We're also looking at slope stabilization measures, but in a lot of respects, there's no sense in stabilizing the slope if it's going to be removed. So, I mean, clearly they'll have to do some work after the material's been removed to make sure nothing else migrates onto the neighbor's property. But there are some things that can be done to take care of that with no problem. So that's the course of action right now, just getting ready to implement it.
I have a quick question. So he would wait. I'm sorry, Laura. So he would wait. Vincent would have to wait until the court tells the contractor to take the fill out. Otherwise, it just sits there in the meantime.
I would suspect that it's in the contractor's best interest to remove this. If the contractor knows.
Right. Well, I mean, just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm seeing messages that in Saugerties, the fill there is still there, and that's been an ongoing. I don't know the exact dates, but that's been going on for a long time. So
3 years.
Okay, so 3 years. So certainly, it's not expected that the Amy's, you know, would have to wait for 3 years, and that these neighbors would have to be concerned about their drinking water for the next three years.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question also, was to Vincent, is Vincent, if Carolus does not hop on it to remove the material, will you hire somebody else such that it'll leave one way or the other quickly? Because I had the same concern, whether you're going to wait for a court order to decree it. And then, oh, by the way, even with court orders, people don't always hop to it. You think that they would, but reality is reality. So Vincent, are you saying you will hire somebody to remove this even if Carolus doesn't? Or are you saying you're going to wait until the court makes Carolus do it?
And you could go after him for the cost of whatever you incur from taking the soil out.
Well, I can answer that question a lot better if I had a couple of weeks with my lawyer to figure out where this is going in time. But know that I do want it removed. If I have to remove it myself, I probably will.
Probably.
I know probably doesn't make your neighbors feel better. I mean, just mean, I'm not being, you know, mean, but I'm saying that probably doesn't make them feel good. Just
just let me say that the town does have the option as we proceed with a lawsuit against or the charges against Vincent. And again, at this point, we're willing to work with them to push this over to Carolus. But we can, if we get a judgment in court, we could then do the cleanup and bill Vincent, who would then have to sue Carolus for it. So
along that same line, Bill, if why can't we do the testing and bill the same?
We need to have a judgment, Richard.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But again, you're talking how long? And then you put it on Carolus, and who knows how long that takes?
No. Once we have a judgment, hold on. Once we have a judgment at the court, then we are permitted to expend the funds to do it and bill back the property owner.
Yeah,
we're going to take it.
What's that?
We're not going to get our money.
Take it. If we don't test it, where are you going to take it?
Yeah,
there are dump sites that you can take fill.
This fill isn't deemed. This fill is not deemed dirty. It can go anywhere.
Yeah. So a question that I have is, so our next meeting is November 10th, and this has been an excellent discussion and extremely important discussion. I heard Vincent say he'd like a little time to figure out how to most quickly move the stuff off of his property. It sounds like we have a lot of irons in the fire. So at what point can we say, hey, let's reconvene at our next meeting and see what Vincent was able to learn? We definitely need to move. I think we all agree on a lot of things. We agree that the fill ought to leave Vincent's property, and we agree that the Amy's well ought to be tested. I understand the logic that says if that fill leaves in the next month, then you maybe don't have as much water testing to do because the fill's gone. But can the fill be gone in a month? I mean, that would be a question. When winter comes, it's a lot harder to move fill when the ground freezes. So we've got a little bit of a deadline if we want to get done before winter. Get done before then, we could have more of a problem. So in any event, I didn't know how much more conversation makes sense tonight. We'll be reconvening anyway on November 10th, and it will have given Vince a chance to work with his lawyers and to see what his options are of getting rid of that bill.
I think
Actually,
that's a little long for me.
We do have a budget hearing on the November 5th.
The resolution gives them 30 days to do the testing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying that's on the table.
Let me intervene one time here. I want to get together with my engineer tomorrow, and I can get back to Bill or somebody from the city council and give you maybe a couple more options on this. But know that nobody wants it gone more than I, maybe Frank. He's probably the other guy that wants it moved as bad as I do.
Actually, I'm going to give you Councilman Rose's phone number, and you can deal directly with him with regarding the timetable, and then he can report back to the town.
I'm not trying to skate around this. I'm hitting it direct.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope the council understands that and can see that.
Well, I mean, give him my phone number. I don't have a problem with that. If it's going to go through the courts, it's going to lay there for years.
Yep.
And if we don't know what's in it, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know how any of it changes otherwise unless Vince up and moves it.
Well, if it comes up dirty, you can get the DEC's attention, you can get the county health department's attention, you can get all the bureaucrats that I've talked to that don't seem to want to do much. You probably can get their attention if you have toxic material there.
If the problem is though, that if, for instance, everything that the DEC saw up there, and the DEC's been up there 3 times, none of it is a violation of state law.
In reality, I believe the soil has been tested before and came back okay. Jim, my engineer, may be able to speak a little more on that.
But we have the report from that Frank supplied with us, the hydro whatever, that says different.
HydroQuest.
I mean, there's so much confusion here.
Well,
we're basically playing some games of stalling for time, and I think we just got to move forward.
I feel like we are moving forward. I feel like Vince has.
Well, I don't mind giving it a week or something if everybody's going to get their eggs in the basket lined up, but we can't let this go on much longer. Like you said, Lori, winter's coming. Who knows what happens?
Right. Well, so our next, aside from the meeting on the 5th, people talked about our next scheduled town board meeting is in 3 weeks. I would be fine if we wanted to schedule another meeting just for this,
I would be fine with that too.
And notify everybody that we have a meeting. I would be happy to meet before the 10th or even before the 5th, if that's what people wanted to do.
And in the meantime, we're going to continue with the town attorney with violations of 192.
If there's a test of that soil, could you please send it to the town board?
I can, and I believe they may have it, or I don't know if my engineer does have it. I'll see what he's got going on it. Yes.
Thank you.
So, Bill, when do we want to meet next on this topic?
we have a meeting.
Under my pillow.
20th. We have a meeting on November 5th, or we can meet next week.
Next week would be fine for me.
Lauren? I mean, I'd go for next week, but that's about it.
So
That's
next
Lauren's
Tuesday,
resolution. I'm not,
so Tuesday, the 27th, we want to meet what day next week do we want to meet?
We'll meet at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, regular town time.
but what do we want on the table when we meet?
We want Vince to come back and tell us what he's learned from his engineer and lawyer, and what does Vincent think his date is going to be to get that stuff off of his property?
I don't think that's knowable, but okay.
Well, but if we're making forward progress, we might not have all the answers, but I'm
But
hoping
see, Bill, here's the problem.
we have some of them.
We all understand lawsuits take a long time, all right? It's gonna take time. In the
Mhm.
meantime, we got a problem that needs addressing more quickly
I
than the
understand that.
lawsuit will allow. That's the simple issue here.
Besides that, Carolus has lost lawsuits before and not cleaned anything up.
Right, but I heard Vincent say that he would be willing to move it himself. If he can't get Carolus to do it quickly, I heard Vincent say he'd be willing to move it himself. And that's what we'd like to find out a week from tonight. What is Vincent's plan? He will have had a week to figure out his plan. And based on his plan, then we can build a plan around it. So I think that Vincent rightfully deserves a little bit of, a week to work with his professionals and then tell us his plan. That was my expectation for a week from tonight.
A week is an awful short time, but I'll work it out. I'll try to make it happen.
Well, just to have a plan and tell us what you know so far.
Right, okay.
That would also mean, Bill, we need to know what our options are within the week.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up then.
Well, is that okay? I mean, look, Rose has a resolution on the table.
Oh, yep. Do you want to call the motion?
Well, I would like to table it until we meet next week. I think that resolution has a lot of things in it that if the fill leaves, some of those things won't be needed. And I would like to see us gather some more information before voting on the resolution. So
Lauren?
I'm asking to table the resolution.
I vote aye on the resolution.
Well, I'm not sure what we're doing.
Well, I put a motion to table the resolution till next week.
Okay. Second to table it? Okay, we're gonna hop over to the public hearings for the water, sewer, and on-site, and we can come back to this.
I believe there may be some contiguous neighbors who have not spoken either. I don't know if you want to give them a chance, but I think if they're impacted, they should speak too.
Agree.
All right, I'll give a few minutes for that, and then, because we are half an hour late for the public hearings. So who wants to speak first from the neighbors?
Jesse
Anybody?
Cutler looks like.
Jesse,
Jesse.
could you unmute Jesse?
Yep. I just can't see everyone. So if you see
Yep,
someone
that's
raise,
fine.
let me know.
Jesse?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, hi. I live at 73 Reynolds. I live just under 10 Church. And if we live here and this is our water, if we don't test the soil, how could we possibly feel safe to drink our water? If we just test the water, how could we possibly feel okay if we don't know what's in the fill? It's so scary. That's one thing. And I think the other thing is we have to hire independent people to do the testing. I understand that Vincent is claiming that he didn't know what was in the fill, but Carolus has been doing all this stuff in Socrates and is in huge trouble. So I think we have to hire separate people to do all this testing and not only go through Vincent.
It will be an outside testing agency, a reputable testing agency that the town engineer is comfortable with to do that.
But we hired a hydrologist who is a professional in exactly this, who understands that this stuff could move into the well quite quickly because the soil is soft and it might not take a long time. And he has told the Amy's not to drink their water. And he has worked in this many, many times. And we paid our money to hire this professional. I think that we should use him. And he has told us where to test the water, how to test the soil, what to look for in the soil.
He doesn't do the testing himself.
He doesn't, but he knows where to do the testing. So why don't we listen to him?
Well, we'll see who he says. Okay. Thank you, Jesse. Any other neighbors? Julie and Luke Unsberger? See them?
You're on
Ashley?
mute.
Hold on one second. Okay, you're ready.
Okay, hi, my name is Julie Zabo and this is Luke Huntsberger. We own property both 81 and 79 Reynolds Lane. And I'd like to say something. I think the town has really dropped the ball on this. I mean, the neighbors have been calling the police, calling the town, talking to Bill. We've had meetings, and all of us were very aware of this mountain of garbage that was being piled up behind the Emmy's house. And it seems that if the code or the zoning code that was cited, I don't really understand this. The zoning code 192, which is saying that any kind of fill that has potentially a toxic thing in it is a violation. That's a zoning code violation. And that it's possible for the building inspector to order the removal of that immediately. So this is happening. This is clear. We need to get the material tested. If it's toxic, then it falls within the violation of that zoning code. And then the building inspector can order its removal. I don't understand all this extra stuff around here. And also, I think the resolution is an attempt to address this thing so that it moves forward. We're already waiting since January for this to happen. Now, the thing about it, we moved here 17 years ago. This whole valley is full of centenarians, people who have been living here and are 100 years old, 98 years old, 90 years old, and it's because the water is clean. And now within a few months, we're under the threat of water not being clean anymore. And this has to change now. It can't wait for another month or another lawsuit. Or I really respect the fact that the landowner is trying to make amends, but as it's really the town's job to enforce that if it's a toxic dump in the back, that something is done about that sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Julie, I don't want this to sound like a lecture. It isn't. I don't mean it, but just a point of information. It is the zoning law and the other section that they keep citing, 192, that is a separate law. That's the solid waste law. In the zoning law, it does give the zoning officer certain abilities to do certain things for the zoning law, with regard to the zoning law. Those same powers don't transfer over to the solid waste law. That's the frustration. The remedy, if you go look at section 192, chapter 192, you'll see what the remedy is for 192-4, which is the illegal dumping or the illegal dump. And down below, it gives the fines. It doesn't give the town the ability or the power, the authority to go and immediately remedy. It has to go through the courts. And
then why was it able to put a stop work order on it? Like why was she able to? Why was there a stop work order that got reversed? Like what was the legal ability for the town to stop? Was it that just because it was solid waste dumping? And why was there a stop work order put in place? And
because there was concern about the dirt flowing down, and Ellen said, look, you need to provide a stabilization plan, which Vince went out and did. And that's when she lifted it for him to do the stabilization plan, to plant grass. But it wasn't until that big washout that it became very evident that what we all suspected, the concrete and the asphalt, was there.
Well, I think we all knew it.
Richard?
Yeah, we knew it much
earlier. Please unmute Richard, Ashley.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Ashley, could you unmute Richard?
He did.
There we go. Thank you, Ashley.
Okay, any other neighbors? Rory, could you unmute Rory, Ashley?
Hi, everybody. I'm Rory. I live at 79 Reynolds Lane next to Jesse. I live on Julie and Luke's property. I planted a garden this year. I'm downgrade of 10 Church. So whatever is in the dirt at 10 Church is going to migrate down to the garden and to the food that we eat. And if you're testing the water, it's not going to make any difference for what's in the soil coming down grade. So the property that I live on is adjacent to this property and it's downgrade. So can anybody here tell me what testing the water will do in the Amy's well for the quality of nutrients that are in the soil that are coming down if this is toxic waste?
No.
Jim McIver, do you want to answer that, address that question? Since you probably have the most expertise.
I need to be unmuted by Ashley.
Yes, yes.
Sure. You know, if the groundwater is impacted beneath where the fill was placed, then all of the wells within the vicinity of the site are potentially threatened. So if you test one and it comes back contaminated, perhaps we need to expand the testing. But I think first things first, do the closest one, see how that is. Go ahead and look at the other wells adjacent to it. As to the impacts of the surface migration of the soils, if the runoff has gone onto the neighbor's property and impacted the gardens, the nature of the fill material could contain things that are less than suitable for growing, but for the most part, the testing of
the fill.
I'm sorry?
So why would we not test the fill? You just said that I could be eating the toxins that are in the fill, but why would nobody here want to test the fill?
Well, I don't think the fill migrated onto your property for one thing, at least based on my inspections of the site. So
if this fill was at your house, would you test your well or would you test the fill that was at your house?
That's an excellent question. I would test the well because the well is the sensitive receptor. The fill material itself may or may not be contaminated. And the biggest single problem that you have with this fill material, as Bill has been saying, is if I put a hole in one place, it could come back clean. A hole, 2 feet over could come back not clean. The only way to really test it would have been before it was actually placed there, which was Corollas's responsibility. He had a requirement for testing those soils based on state regulation, and he clearly didn't do it. So that being said, there were test results from other material that Corollas has in Saugerties, and that material came back with elevated levels of heavy metals and some elevated levels of PAHs. So those things tend not to migrate straight down.
But it doesn't sound safe to eat.
Well, one, there's heavy metals in soils naturally. If we were to go to your property now and test your soils, they'd probably come back based on where you live pretty high in iron, maybe, some lead and some other things like that. You'd be really surprised. So the question is has what you planted sucked those up through the root systems? That's what you have to worry about. And certain plants are better at that than others. But the runoff, the contaminated runoff has stopped at a boundary. One thing that they did was, I'm sorry, my cat is screaming here.
Oh, he's muted again, Ashley. I guess you need to come off mute. Jim, you're muted.
I did that intentionally to call attention to my cat who's just kind of going nuts here. So it's one of the benefits of Zoom, or not a benefit of Zoom. So, But that being said, so they actually installed silt fence. Some of what they did was actually right, or some of what Carolus did was actually right. He put a silt fence up around the perimeter of the area that he was filling. That silt fence was supposed to stop the migration of what happened on the neighbor's property. But, you know, the problem is the nature of the fill material. And one of the things that I noticed when I saw this fill is that it's what we describe as uncontrolled. So there's big giant boulders and little tiny rock, and none of it was placed correctly. So he dumped it in piles and he spread it out. And so those big giant boulders created channels in the fill. And so when you got those heavy rains in August, no doubt that caused the blowout, because the channels channeled the surface infiltration, just made it run off, blow out onto the neighbor's property. So that being said, it's not on your property that I can see. You know, will it get to your property? Not likely, the actual fill material itself. So what's the transport mechanism? The transport mechanism is rainwater infiltrating the fill and into groundwater and then being used in your well. And so if you pump your well to water your garden, if there's, you know, PAHs or heavy metals showing up in your wells, that could affect your garden. But the likelihood of that occurring is small. I won't say it's non-existent, but it's small, very small. So that being said, how do you figure out what the problem is? Well, you look where it's closest to the fill. And the down gradient receptor, the nearest down gradient receptor, is the neighbor's property. So from a hydrogeologist's point of view, the place you want to look at is that well that's closest to the place where the fill was disposed of. Because when you pump your well, and you all know this, it's like a straw sucking out of a glass, right? Only, you know, the water goes down, but then the water comes back in and fills up. The water goes down, back in and fills it up. So any rainwater that's gone through that contaminated fill material migrates into groundwater eventually and becomes your drinking water supply. So, you know, that's the nature of the beast. So sample the adjacent well. If that's contaminated, then you know you got to take steps. Then you know you can put a filter on that well.
My understanding was that the independent hydrologist suggested testing the fill. That was in the report.
Yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I just think it's sort of a waste. You know, go right to the problem right now. You know, go and sample the well. Understand the sensitive receptor. The thing that's at risk from this disposal is the drinking water supply. It's not the fill so much. If the fill's contaminated, that's a problem only if it's going to stay there. If it's not going to stay there, it really isn't a problem.
Well, we could.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, what I was going to suggest, and what I've talked to about this with Vincent, and the plan that we put together for the removal from the adjacent property, is what's much more important is not testing the fill material, because odds are it's at least somewhat contaminated, because Carolus, you know, has a bad reputation, right? So we know that if we test, it'll come back contaminated if we test enough of it. My fear for you guys is that if you don't test in the right location, it comes back clean. Then he could actually argue that you could leave it in place. And maybe that's not the best idea. And that's not in Vincent's best interests. It's not really in anyone's best interests. And in order for you to do enough tests, you'd probably have to test at 10 separate locations. You'd have to take grab samples and composite samples. The cost of doing that probably is in the $20,000 range, which is probably outside of the range of Vincent's ability to pay for right now. So that being said, sampling the well, you can go cut right to the chase. That's what's at risk. And not just once, you know, you do it over a series of time, because several people have raised the point that, you know, it could be leaching out slowly, and over time the impacts could increase. So you do it once now, then again in a couple of months, then again in a couple of months, and so on. And you establish a pattern. You see what the levels of contamination are over time. rather than just, you know, trying to grab the soil. Because if I sample that soil, you know, dollars to donuts, it'll come back within acceptable limits. And I don't think that's in anyone's best interest. And so that's kind of the thing that I'm a little bit worried about. Some of it will be contaminated. And if I hit the right spot, it will be very contaminated. If I don't, it won't be. And then Carolus could argue to leave it in place. And I don't know if that's the way to go. I think that you've all raised good points. It's a violation of the town ordinance. It's theoretically a violation of Part 360.13, you know, so that Vincent has recourse against Carolus. Carolus, as a licensed construction and demolition debris guy, processing facility, is supposed to know what he can and can't use. You know, the regulations, if you get this license, say you know what you're doing. And he did something he shouldn't have. He basically screwed my clients, and I shouldn't put it that way, but you know, that's what he did. He knew he shouldn't have done that, deposited that material there, and he did it anyway. So that being said, you know, address this in a way that makes sense. And I think that the biggest sensitive receptor, the thing that you all have to worry about, and a lot of you have raised this point, is groundwater. The best recourse is to sample that adjacent well. If that adjacent well is contaminated, then the town can decide if they want to expand that testing. But if the adjacent well is contaminated, it sets the tone, it sets the path, and you know what to do. So, you know, that's just what we would recommend. If the material is going to stay on the property, then you have to stabilize the slope. But, you know, it's been Vincent's, at least what he expressed to me, is that he's interested in having it removed from the property. And, you know, we're trying to help him make that happen too. You know,
I think it's the town's position that it has to be removed.
Mm-hmm. And truthfully, if you work in concert, you'll probably do a lot better. Unfortunately, you know, Vincent is in the middle of this whole thing and, you know, maybe screwed. But, you know, on the other hand, you know, it's pretty clear that Carolus did a bunch of things that he knows he should not have done. If indeed he truly has a license and, you know, as he claims to, and his facility is on the list. So.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question, Jim?
Just let me go to Joe.
Okay, no, go ahead. I'd rather hear.
He's been waving his hand. Ashley, Joe's iPad. Joe, you should unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, hey, I just wanted to follow up on a few things that people have said as well. I know it's expensive to test the soil, but you know, it's something I really feel needs to be done, as well as with the water. How do we know what's going to happen to the water if we don't know what's in there unless it's removed? However, how long is it going to take to remove it? We don't know. And, you know, there's different veins, how waters run, and I don't want my well contaminated, nor does anybody else. So, you know, I really think I'm a strong proponent of also testing the soil. And I also think that Paul Rubin should oversee all the investigations, because we did pay him. He is a scientist and he knows what he's doing. And, you know, we all, you know, I'm going to cut it short, but, you know, my nephew who lived here growing up his whole life, always said to me, Shady has the best water ever. And people live to be 100 because of that. Now we're in jeopardy of losing that, you know, and how sad is that, really? I mean, this is a really serious issue, and it can't be taken lightly. And you know, and everybody knows it's just wrong. So I'm glad to hear it's going to be removed. I hope it's going to be removed quickly. I think, we all know, as was said, these things take a long time. I don't want to sit here 2 years with worrying whether I can drink my water. Unacceptable. So I'm hoping that the board will act immediately on this issue, come up with the correct resolution, which is, of course, what we want: total removal of the fill. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Richard, you had a question for Jim?
Yeah, just real quick. If you say if we test the dirt, the fill, and we miss, it comes up clean. We miss a spot, and wherever we test comes up clean. Corollas has a point to say, well, why should I remove it? Well, water sometimes takes a long time to be. Frank's well may take a while to be contaminated. What if we test it right away and the first test comes up clean? Doesn't Corollas argue the same thing? I mean, this could go on for a long time. And I think that's the problem people have with this, is the length of time this is going to take. And frankly, we got to do something.
I think you're actually onto something in some ways. But I
That's
think
what my wife says.
Well,
Wise woman.
At least your wife talks to you. I'm kidding.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up something personal, Jim.
No. I try to make a joke at my wife's expense, and she's giving me the evil eye as we speak. So I should not have done that. But that being said, I think that you have to actually test more than once. You have to, because the nature of the beast is that if there is an impact, and because of the nature of the fill material and the nature of the contaminants, they're going to take a long time to get into groundwater. And so if you test the neighbor's well right now, the water quality will probably be okay. You test in a year, it may not be. So somehow or other, you have to plan accordingly. And certainly if this material stays on the site, you have to have a routine schedule for testing to see if groundwater is being impacted by this.
Well, to Richard's point, whether it's contaminated or not, it's illegal fill, and it should be removed.
Yeah, it's just, having been on, involved in similar projects before, I think Supervisor McKenna is right on, and that this may take some time to resolve. So what do you want to do in the interim? You want to protect the natural resource that's most likely to be impacted by this. And so test the groundwater. My fear is if you test the soil, if it comes back within acceptable standards, you give him, meaning Corollas, an opportunity to try to establish precedents to leave it on site. By not testing the soil, the implication is that it's illegal because it doesn't meet the requirements for Woodstock based on its solid waste ordinance, and it doesn't meet the requirements for use of fill of this nature and as per Part 360.13. So you have established precedents that say it can't be used. Rely on them instead of testing it. If you test it and it comes back clean, I think you open up a can of worms that you don't want to open up. And, then he can argue that there's no problem with the wells, and we all know that these things take time. So I would protect the natural resource that's most important or most at risk. And then I would, work with Vincent to the extent that you can to help him get the person that put this material there that shouldn't have been put there removed from the site.
Jim?
Vincent, and then Joe, I'll get to you next.
I absolutely agree. And we've talked about this before. One of the problems why there's still dirt in Saugerties was because he skated on that exact same loophole, that they didn't test all the right spots and they used that, and that's why it's being tied up. What we have is the soil is absolutely the wrong soil for the fill. That's blatant. There's no questions asked. There's no way he can skate on that. It's got to happen a lot quicker now. because we don't have to go through all this soil testing, and there's no way that he can fudge that by saying you tested at the wrong spot, you didn't do this spot. It's just blatantly the wrong material by laws of the county.
Okay.
Am I correct with that?
Joe, did you wanted to?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just had a thought, and this had crossed my mind before. Would the soil testing have been easier if you did not allow Carolus to continue dumping maybe good soil over the soil or fill that contained C&D materials?
There's no good soil. It's all crap.
So there was no layers. When they continued to let them dump, it was the same stuff.
Up until they got to the top, where then they put some topsoil on top of that to establish seeding. But almost all of the fill that we've seen based on our inspections of the property has been what we would call uncontrolled fill material. And we observed pieces of concrete, pieces of asphalt, some material that looks like ash, and sand and gravel mixed together. But there are boulder sized pieces, chunks of concrete that are 2 to 3 feet wide and long. And, so it's just not suitable material for compacting. And that's why it blew out in the first place. So it shouldn't have been used. It was installed incorrectly. And it's what in the trade we would call it uncontrolled fill material. You would only use it in a place where you didn't have to worry about slope stabilization. So there's so many things he did wrong, to Vincent. I can't even begin to describe it. And
it's just hard to believe that it took, all this time to figure out that something was going wrong, have it completed.
Joe, what I would say is that every time that either the DEC, the county, or the building inspector got up there, there was no evident concrete, that they were burying it over. They were digging and burying that very quickly.
But I thought he just said that all the material was bad. There was no good. So how are you burying it so that it's not seen?
Well, the top fill didn't appear to be filled with concrete or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we have no fill law that made it illegal.
Yeah, the only way we knew that there was this kind of fill material there was the blowout, that channel that got created that impacted the neighbor's property. You would not have seen this if you just went to the site and looked at the site. You would see what looks like topsoil over the entire site. And not only that, he made a valid attempt to establish a grass berm on the edge. So he actually put down that like grass mat fabric to hold the slope in place. And, they seeded it, and they did everything they could to try to hide what they put there. But the fact that it was uncontrolled fill material caused the blowout, and there's nothing that would have happened eventually anyways. So he should not have put that material there. It was not appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else who hasn't asked a question or made a comment? So the other thing I would say is that I see in the sidebar here in the chat, there's a lot of questions going on. I just have not had time to take a look at those. But my email is supervisor@woodstockny.org. If you have important questions in there that you don't want to ask online, but you want to address to me, feel free to email me later or tomorrow, and I'll get back to you.
Bill, the chat can be saved, right? Ashley, the chat can be saved. So you want to make sure you save that. Can't hear you. Yeah, she said yes.
Okay, good. So I'll go back and take a look at that tomorrow. The other thing is that I will pull off, Ashley, would you be able to, on a thumb drive, put Jim's comments? So we'll forward the whole thing, but we'll highlight Jim's comments and send that to Dennis as well tomorrow. to get his input on these questions.
And then, Bill, I know we've talked about it, I think Lauren and maybe Richard also, but moving forward, what do we do so we're not in this position again as a board?
I did send out several months ago asking for comment, a bunch of fill laws. It's my recommendation that we put together a compilation of those laws, take the best from each one, and adopt a law. Because
I mean, I've read it a couple times now, and I don't know why we just don't. I don't know if Laura's committee.
Well,
wants to take this
there's
up,
about
or
7
the board
laws
to do it.
No,
I understand that. I understand that. But there's certain elements that are just basic. They're just basic elements to it that we could pull together.
It's
fairly quickly.
I think it would be pretty simple to say any fill brought in off-site must be specified in type and amount, roughly amount, on a set of approved drawings and subject to inspection.
Yeah, and that's basically what that law says right off the top.
At what limit, though?
What do you mean?
Anything that comes in off-site.
Anything.
So every load of gravel that Doug Ostrander trucks in to top a driveway.
He just has to, on the drawings, it has to say where it comes from.
Suppose he's just topping your driveway.
Well, that's not fill. In my opinion.
That's my point, Lauren. We just need to clarify.
Exactly.
That's all.
Fill material.
No, Lauren said fill, I think.
So when you say fill, though, the definition of fill is dirt you're talking about, not gravel.
Well, if you're bringing in shale for your driveway or 400 fines or something like that, that's not something you're going to get somewhere that's contaminated. Right?
Okay.
But if you're bringing in stuff like that pile of crap up there, it should have to be specified on the drawings. And I'm not saying down to the grain or the pound or whatever that, but a rough idea and subject to inspection if the building department thinks it's necessary.
Okay. So again, I would just ask, let's pull the best parts out of those laws, and we can start the motion to adopt it at our next meeting.
Okay. So somebody will send around the compilation of what we want to consider passing.
Well, Bill sent it around. It's what the main points are already highlighted.
Bill, so just so you're aware, if you go back and check, Bill sent around, I believe, 1 or 2 copies where I actually made edits. And then I sent along 3 or 4 more copies of other laws. Each had 1 or 2 good things in it.
Right. So my question is somebody going to be compiling?
Well, why don't you take a look at what I've sent and just the highlighted parts and send me back your thoughts on that.
Okay. So I'm looking for a bunch of emails from you. Okay. That all have to do with the fill law. Okay. Will do.
Ashley or I can go back tomorrow and resend them all out so you have them fresh.
Well, it'd be handy if it was one email that had them all in as attachments, and then it'd be a lot easier to pull them all out.
It wasn't that easy because they were cut and paste out of local laws. I don't think I could get them all in one email.
If in your email you just type in fill, they should pop right up. That's what they have.
I'm pretty sure that's what
Okay.
That's what I did.
Subject line.
Right. I'll search on fill. Okay. All righty, we'll do that. That's fine.
Okay, so we're going to meet next week, same time. Neighbors are all welcome back. Contact Ashley middle of the day, Tuesday, and she can send out the links. Vincent, we expect to see you here with Jim to give us an update on the progress. I am going to forward this information to Dennis from Bernier Larios to get any input he might offer. And I'll give everybody an update on where we are with our potential charges against you. So
just to make it clear, the resolution has been tabled until next week.
I asked to table it and it was not seconded, but I
need to.
I second the motion to table.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reggie and Richard and Lauren?
We didn't say aye.
Yeah, I'm asking. Okay.
All right.
Motion,
I will, if we're still discussing the resolution, then the issues that I do have with the resolution, I've got it up right here, therefore be it resolved. It's talking about the town of Woodstock paying for all kinds of things, when I think we're talking about either Vincent and or Corolla's paying for things. So that's an issue that I have with the resolution.
Well,
is
if you read further in it, it says that we bill them.
Well, okay, so there's a lot of, and I may not be looking at the most recent then, because the one where I'm looking at, I'm reading all the therefore be it resolved, and I'm not seeing that. So, so these are some issues I have, and it lays out how long we're going to be testing, but it's my belief if the soil disappears, that changes how much testing is needed. There'll be some, but so I do have concerns. The reason why I wanted to table the resolution was because I think that we've learned a lot from the calls, from this call, and there are some different plans in place which could change some of what is being called out in this resolution. I'm concerned with the resolution, and I'm not seeing where the words where it says that, and maybe I'm not looking at the latest resolution, but the one that I'm looking at does not say somebody else is going to be paying for all of this. So the resolution I'm looking at has some things that I'm not happy about in it. I am fully in agreement that we have a problem that needs to be fixed. I am pleased that I feel like we're working together on that. I feel like we've got some of the right parties in place and getting some plans in place. But the copy of the resolution I'm looking at, and maybe you can tell me who sent it and what day and time, maybe I'm not looking at the right level of the resolution, but the level I'm looking at, I have concerns with what is edicted to be done, because I think some of that should be modified based on the plan.
I can read it to you again if you'd like, Laura.
I don't want you to read it to me again. I want you to tell me where it is so I can pull it up and digest every word at my own reading speed.
But it was sent from
Top of the second
WEC.
page.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood you. It was sent from the WEC. You know that, right?
Well, I'm going back. The copy, again, the copy that I'm looking at was not sent from the WEC. It does have comments from Bill on it.
Yeah, but that was.
my comments are in red.
Correct.
I'm assuming Lauren read what was in black.
Yeah, I'm looking at October 14th, the October 14th email.
Top of the second page.
Okay, October 14th from supervisor. Okay, I will go back. And I'm looking at, what I'm looking at is with Bill's comments, it has a 3-page resolution. And I'm reading all the therefore be it resolved, because that's where it says what we're going to do.
So
Right.
what legal mechanism are we going to use to force the homeowner to pay? Lauren?
That's why we have lawyers. Be nice to get them working for us.
Okay.
Okay. And as I look at what's in black, not what Bill had, but what is in black, I am not seeing anywhere where it says the homeowner will pay. I'm just not seeing that.
Well, that's where they quoted the zoning law, which is not the law that he violated, but so the law that he actually violated, 292, or excuse me, 192, the solid waste law, doesn't have anything in there about them paying unless we prevail in court and the judge dictates it. So we
Right.
could do all this testing, and if the judge doesn't dictate it, we pay for it.
So what I'm looking at then is a resolution that has a lot of stuff the town of Woodstock will pay for. I don't see words that say the cost will be the cost will be instead covered by the homeowner or Corollas.
Yes.
So I stand by my comment that I'm looking at a resolution where I'm not seeing who's going to pay for this, and it has a lot of testing requirements that may not be needed once all that fill is removed. So I have issues. I do have issues with this resolution as listed, which is why I had hoped to table it so that we could improve on it before we approved it.
And we're only testing for 59, well, the other neighbors we're not testing for?
Testing for ground zero.
Okay. And how many soil tests are we going to do?
Well, I'm not talking about going on his property and doing anything like that. This is not going to be extraordinarily expensive. I'm talking about he talks about the rainwater coming through it, washing the stuff out. Well, it's blown the side of it right out and it's running right out there.
I've been there many times.
I know.
yes.
So when there's water coming out of there, test that water. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying go up with an excavator and dig up his lawn.
Well, you did talk about testing the fill as well.
That's what I'm talking about for testing the fill, is what is blown out of the side of it and laying there on the ground with pieces of concrete and pieces of asphalt and brick and glass and everything else in it.
So back to my issue. My issue is when I read the therefore be it resolved items, because all the other stuff is whereas this, whereas that, whereas 500 things, those aren't what we were agreeing to. What we were agreeing to is the words in black in the therefore be it resolved paragraphs. And those therefore be it resolved paragraphs, I believe, do not accurately state what we want done and who's going to pay for it. So that is why I believe this resolution as it stands does not protect the town and doesn't even protect the residents we're trying to protect. And it's has stuff in it that may not be needed. So
then vote against it.
Well,
okay. All in favor?
Wait. I mean, I agree. It's not the best. It's not the easiest resolution to comprehend. I do agree with Laura on that. My point here is we need to push this forward. And by voting for this resolution, we get there. If we want to rescind it next week and we still meet, that's fine too. But let's, you know, like I said earlier, our job is to protect the citizens of this town. And if we're not doing that, then we're not doing our job.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay.
nay.
Okay. Thank you, folks. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7. Now we're going to move on to the public hearing for, which one do we have first? The Water District. Jackie, do you have the notice for that?
I do. Whereas at a meeting held on October 2nd, 2020, the town board resolved to schedule a public hearing on the proposed water district budget. All persons may now be heard.
Okay. So the budget for the water district, it went down approximately $31,000. Our rate for the year is 42 cents per 100 gallons with a $17 quarterly base charge. Any members of the public wishing to speak for or against the budget? Any members of the board have any questions, comments about the budget?
Nope.
None?
No, I think we went over it, didn't we?
Okay. So then I'll make a motion. Whereas the water district costs for the year 2021 are $215,980, and whereas there was a public hearing scheduled for October 20th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom, actually
8:30. 8:30 is more accurate.
Therefore, be it resolved to close the public hearing, and be it further resolved to finance the above costs for the water district in the following manner: $157,886 in metered sales, $50,694 in meter charges, $6,400 in interest and penalties, $1,000 from interest and earnings, and be it further resolved to set a $17 base fee for each meter for each quarterly reading, and be it further resolved the user rate shall be 42 cents per 100 gallons, and be it further resolved the user rate shall be effective beginning December 1st, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, since we're behind schedule, we can hop right over to the on-site district. Jackie, do you have that public notice?
Whereas at a meeting held on October 2nd, 2020, the town board resolved to schedule a public hearing on the proposed on-site sewer district budget. All persons may now be heard.
Anybody, any member of the public wish to speak for or against the on-site sewer budget for 2021? Going once, twice. Any members of the town board wishing to speak? Nobody, nobody. Whereas the on-site district costs for the year 2021 are $51,428, which I should note is actually a decrease of about $1,100. And whereas the properties on the on-site systems pay for the operation and maintenance of the constructed systems, and whereas the public hearing was held on October 20th, 2020 at approximately 8:40 p.m. via Zoom on this plan and assessment roll, therefore be it resolved to close the public hearing, and be it further resolved to finance the above costs for the on-site district in the following manner: $200 for interest on revenue, $51,228 special O&M assessment on those properties, those improved properties per Schedule B. Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we can hop right over to the sewer.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I don't think you can just hop over it.
Don't step. Are you ready, Bill?
Go ahead.
Whereas at a meeting held on October 2nd, 2020, the town board resolved to schedule a public hearing on the proposed hamlet sewer district, and all persons may now be heard.
Okay. So the sewer district went down approximately $3,500 from last year. The rates remain the same as last year. Actually, no, excuse me. I believe the rate per 100 gallons went down from 103 to 102.
Yeah, 1 cent.
1 cent.
Thank you. Us sewer district people appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Any members of the public? Linda, you wanna? Okay, if you could unmute the lovers.
I just have a question. Where does the sewer district end on Glasgow Turnpike from the four corners of Rock City? When it comes down Glasgow, where does it end, or does it end there?
Does it go to the four corners? I don't know.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it
I
goes
think
up
it
to the
does.
four corners.
Oh,
It goes to the rec field.
Goes to the rec field.
The water district goes up that far, but the
Yeah,
sewer district
yeah.
does not.
Okay, is there any plan eventually to extend it?
Well, there was once, but it was voted down. So you can always bring it back. But that was a while ago, so.
Okay.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would it take to ask to have it extended, or to look into it, or?
But you have to decide which direction you want to extend it. I mean, I know where your
Towards my
house is.
I want to hook up.
It's all about me, Linda.
I know. What can I? My neighbors wanted to. I have a couple of neighbors that said they would want to too.
You know, I could get the information on, you'd have to have a referendum. The people in the geographic area would have to have a vote to expend funds, because what would happen is for that extension, you would get taxed.
Right. Okay.
So if you want, I have that somewhere here in the office. I can look it up and send it to you.
Okay, great.
Do me a favor, Joan, just send me an email and reminds me, and I'll do that in the next day or two.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have questions about the sewer district? Anybody from the board have any questions? Going once, twice? Okay. Whereas for the year 2021, the Hamlet Sewer District has operation and maintenance costs totaling $278,529. And whereas a public hearing was held on October 20th, 2020 at 8:44 p.m. via Zoom, therefore be it resolved to close the public hearing, and be it further resolved to finance the above cost for the Hamlet Sewer District in the following manner: $240,007 for metered sales, $30,022 for meter charge, $5,000 from interest on penalties, $1,000 for interest on revenue, $2,500 for service to other funds, and be it further resolved to set $17 base fee for each meter for quarterly reading, and be it further resolved that the user rate shall be $1.02 per 100 gallons. Be it further resolved, the user rate shall be effective beginning December 1st, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just
Okay.
got a text from Terry Reynolds. Simmons Drive is on this. She's on the sewer district. So
Yeah, but I don't think it goes up above the hill there.
it doesn't go up the hill, I don't think.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
People that eat a lot of fiber have a higher rate.
We've never looked at it that way, but it's a possibility. All right, let me see. We've got some other resolutions here. Be it resolved to accept minutes for meetings held on September 22nd, October 2nd, October 6th, and October 7th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And Jackie, I did mark up 2 of those minutes, so you can look for my markings on it. I think I marked up at least 2. Let's put it that way.
Thank you.
Maybe 3. I
Maybe
was in there
3.
when she was doing it.
Yeah.
Be it resolved to accept the town clerk's report.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Be resolved to authorize payment of audited vouchers in the amount of $284,020.51.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Whereas,
Well, the transfers per transfer sheet.
oh yeah, that one there. Be resolved to authorize transfers per transfer sheet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good catch, Laura.
Thank you.
Whereas
Well,
a
we
water
didn't-
heater
I don't-
fails, causing a major leak in the basement at.
Yeah, I
Third-
didn't think, Bill, I didn't think you did the be it resolved to adopt the tentative 2021 budget. You did the pieces of it, but I didn't.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought that was to set the public
You're right.
hearing.
We missed that one too, Laura.
Okay.
So be it resolved to adopt the tentative 2021 budget.
It's right after the,
We jumped into sewer and then
right
we didn't
after
go.
the Hamlet sewer budget.
Down the sewer.
That's not on mine.
Yeah.
There's.
Yeah, after the Hamlet sewer district and the final be it resolved, the user rate should be effective beginning December. What
Yeah, on that page.
What I have right after that is.
Be it resolved to adopt the tentative 2021 budget, and be it further resolved to schedule a public hearing for the tentative 2021 budget for November 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Be it further resolved to authorize the town clerk to post the town's official newspaper a notice of such hearing.
Second.
All in
Just a
favor?
discussion real quick.
Yep.
So that's the 5th, so that's that's an additional meeting. We don't meet on the 5th generally, right?
That's correct.
Well,
Okay.
technically.
Just checking, just
No.
checking.
Well, technically, Richard, we always, the budget is always adopted, or let me say, the budget hearing is always the Thursday after the election day.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So that is, it's typically a meeting. It's not scheduled at the beginning of the year, but it's typically when we adopt the budget.
Okay, and we still meet on the 10th. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Correct.
And our plan is Zoom for, how long will we be Zooming? Do you know for our town board meetings?
I have no idea. The
Okay.
governor,
Long
did we
time.
adopt that? Hold on. Did we adopt
Wait,
that?
Not yet. I
All in
seconded it.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have
Praying
no
for the
idea.
long haul with COVID.
Yeah, my guess
Yeah.
is the numbers are gonna start to increase and
Yeah.
the governor, as opposed to loosening things up, is gonna clamp down. So my guess is we're gonna see this through the winter.
Yeah,
But
yay.
again, it's gonna be on a
It's a
monthly.
month-to-month basis, Laura. The
Yeah.
governor decides every month.
Okay.
Gives them something to do.
Got nothing else to do.
Whereas the water heater failed, causing a major leak at the basement of 37 to 41 Tinker Street, Woodstock, New York, account number 1141/. 778 on August 6, 2020. And whereas it was determined by the water superintendent, the water did not enter into the wastewater collection system, but rather into the ground. Now therefore be resolved to charge for sewer the average amount charged in the previous 4 quarters and subtract the remaining sewer charge from the September 2020 bill, and be it further resolved to charge the full amount for the water of $284.21, and be it further resolved to charge the adjusted amount for sewer of $299.24.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout New York, the nation, and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling cost on average $39 per tree per year, remove 261 pounds of pollutants each year per tree, produce life-giving oxygen, remove 24 tons of carbon dioxide per tree each year, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic delayed the celebration of Arbor Day, therefore be it resolved, the Woodstock Town Board does hereby proclaim that October 12, 2020 will be recognized as our National Arbor Day in the town of Woodstock, and urges all its residents to celebrate every Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Be it further resolved to urge all citizens to plant new trees and maintain and care of our existing trees, so to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And be it further resolved, the town of Woodstock has planted a red oak memorial tree in honor of William Harder.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, where did the red oak for Bill Harder go?
The red oak for Bill Harder was planted just slightly to the right of the chamber booth on Rock City Road.
Oh, nice.
I appreciate that from the tree committee. It's a nice gesture.
Yes. Yep. And we had a very nice ceremony a couple of days ago, and good job. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Chris Wango from the Housing Committee effective October 4th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Just give me 1 second. So we all got a bio on an individual for the Woodstock Human Rights Commission. I know I had a chance to talk to a couple of you that were in favor of making this appointment. So just give me 1 second. Got a long list here. Okay, be it resolved to appoint Gail Two Eagles to the Woodstock Human Rights Commission effective October 20th, 2020, term to expire December 31st, 2020. She's filling in a term that's almost expired, but all in favor? Or excuse me, any seconds?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And
Bill, what was her name? Gail
Gail Two Eagles.
Eagles. Okay.
So Ashley, if we could remember to reach out to her tomorrow and get her to come in and get signed up and give her the ethics forms and everything else.
Yes, Two Eagles, like the number 2, TWO, Two Eagles.
Yes.
GAYLE, I believe is spelling, Jackie.
She's from Yankton.
Thank you.
Okay. And Councilman Hepner, do you want to read the pending resolution?
I can read it if you don't want to. I guess I got it in front of me.
Well, you offered it.
Yeah, okay. This is a resolution to create the Woodstock Cemetery Committee, which we discussed at the last town board meeting. Be it resolved to create the Woodstock Cemetery Committee as an advisory committee to the Woodstock Town Board. Be it further resolved that the committee shall consist of 7 members selected by the town board, and that the chair shall also be appointed by the board. Committee members shall serve 1-year terms effective January 21st. I just thought that was easier for bookkeeping, Bill. The committee which shall periodically report to the town board will determine its own meeting schedule. And be it further resolved that the Woodstock Cemetery Committee shall offer advisory suggestions to the town on improvements to the cemetery grounds, and with consent of the town, engage in fundraising efforts on behalf of the cemetery as needed. Committee members shall not direct town employees, however, under supervision of the town supervisor.
Okay. Do I have a second for purpose of discussion? Okay,
I think I heard who seconded?
I believe Lauren did.
Okay, sounds good. So a question that I have is, I would recommend that as opposed to having 7 people each serving a 1-year term, it can be a little scary. It's nice to have overlapping terms. So I would think.
I agree. I don't disagree with you, Laura. I just couldn't figure which way to go, whether it be 4 for 2 years, 3 for 3 years. I mean, I just thought it was simpler to go 1 year, but if you want to change it, that's fine with me.
Well, I'd like to change it. So my thought is if you've got 7 people, you might do 2, 2, and 3. So maybe 3-year terms. You know, our planning board is 7-year terms. So you got 7 people each in 7 years. That seems kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So my thought is a 3-year term. If we had 2, 2, and 3, and then you would just decide which 2 people are a 1-year term, you know, do the 3 people get a 1-year, 2-year, or 3-year terms? And then you pick for the people, the other, you know, whichever number doesn't get a 3-year term, then you pick a 1-year term and a 2-year term or whatever for the others.
But,
and then you lay it
Laura,
in. And then
Laura, I would suggest do a 3-year and a 4-year, or a 2-year and a 3-year. Don't bounce it into 3.
Well, no, but
See what I'm saying?
My thought is everybody would have a 3-year term, but it's just you're starting everybody at the same time, and you want to stagger the 3-year terms. So when you first have the committee,
I see what you're saying.
when you first have the committee, different people have different years to their term,
Right.
but then
Right.
it's a 3-year term. When they re-up, it's always a 3-year term.
Okay.
I don't care whatever the wisdom of the board is. I just thought I know every year we get to the end of the year and everybody tries to figure out who's off and who's on. And it just seems simpler to make it 1-year terms or 2-year terms, everybody running on the same terms, but I don't care. I have no,
Yeah, if we're going to
you don't want everybody to be off at the same time. So
no, I guess not. But
if you stagger,
they're generally renewed. Bill, what do you want to do?
Well,
you're the one that has to. You're the one that has to deal with it. So.
Well, it's not
we
a problem.
deal with it. It sounds like, Richard, from the resolution.
What?
What'd you say, Reggie?
I said it sounds like we all have to deal with it. It's just,
yeah.
You know,
no, I mean he has to want to figure out who's off and who's on at the end of the year. So.
Yeah.
I'll offer an amendment to the resolution in a minute, and it'll basically be the same wording that we used for the Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
So you're going to be the liaison to this board?
Yeah, I still am.
And
I'm dying to get in. Yep.
My only concern is that we can't have conflicting conversations between the supervisor and the town board and the committee with regard to employees.
I put that in the resolution.
I just wanted to verbalize it. That's all.
That's the McKenna clause.
The McKenna clause. Okay.
Kind of an Irish Santa Claus, isn't it?
So I would offer this amendment to the resolution. So be it further resolved that this resolution take effect on January 1st, 2021, and that we appoint 3 members to initial term of 1 year, 2 members to an initial term of 2 years, and 2 members to an initial term of 3 years. Thereafter, terms shall be 3 years.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay.
So wait, thereafter, everybody's term is 3 years? Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that way
But it
there'll
wouldn't
be,
be the same year.
right.
Right.
Right, no, I understand that. I just, okay.
So next year we'll appoint 7 people. 3 of them will be for 1 year. At the end of that year, we'll either reappoint them or appoint new people for a 3-year term. And then the same thing the following year. So we get into the rotation.
That's fine. You're the one, like I said, you're the one who's got to figure it out. So whatever you want to do.
And so then the resolution will take effect in the first of the year.
Yeah, it just makes it simpler instead of doing it now.
Yeah, we'll do our interviews. We'll meet, you know, we have to publicize because now it's a board. So we'll have to publicize and interview candidates for this.
Yeah, I've made Terry aware of that, and we'll see.
Okay.
I just can't, you know, some people may want to be leaving the task force. It's not a forever job, a lifetime position. And this allows for a consistency of moving people in and out better than what we have.
Well, and part of the interviews can include asking, do they want the initial 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year term? It'll be 3 year terms once it's off the ground, but part of the interview process might be to find out who wants, you know, the shorter versus the longer term.
Yep.
Which is similar to what we did with the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah,
And there were a few people who wanted shorter terms and then, okay. All in favor of the amendments?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor of the original, the original resolution?
The amended resolution.
The amended
No,
resolution.
right. It went into an amended, so.
Okay, the amended.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. Ashley, do we have any public be heard?
All Church Road. We heard from all of them except for Michael Colber. He's no longer here.
Okay, so no public be heard. Motion to
Wait,
adjourn.
Terry's got his hand up.
Oh, Terry. All right, since we have no other public be heard, we'll give you a minute.
Who's Terry?
Terry
Gotta
Lover.
unmute. L&T Lover.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Oh, okay, good. Now I was unmuted. I was just wondering, with the Human Rights Commission, after the first of the year, will there be consideration of other appointments? Being that it sounded like Gail's term would end on December, the end of December. But then as the new year goes on.
I don't want to speak for the board, but you know, I would just ask Gail to send in an email stating her interest in continuing on. And we wouldn't have to interview again. I would just put forth a resolution to give her a full term.
Okay, is there consideration of any other applicants?
We do. We're waiting for some bio information back from them. But I wanted to act on Gail because she was the first one to get back, and I think she'll be a great addition. So yes, we will hopefully be getting information and acting on 2 others.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You've got 4 now. This will give you 5, so you need 2.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I don't, not publicly heard, but I did want to remind people of the huge election coming up.
There's an election this year?
What do you know about that? Huh. And of course our state.
Am I running?
What's that?
Am I running?
Well, not this year. Not this year.
Okay.
But just as a reminder to everybody, our state has tried to make it as easy as possible to vote. People can still get absentee ballots if they want to vote absentee ballot. Early voting, I have to say, I believe is wonderful. I did it last year. I plan to do it again. The back of the community center, Bill, I think, right? We're doing the back of the community center.
Correct. Same location.
And so early voting will run from Saturday, October 24th through Sunday, November 1st. So there are 9 days for early voting. And if you go to the Board of Elections, you can see the times for early voting. I think there are 5 sites within Ulster County. If you weren't in town, you wanted to vote in a different town in Ulster County, but you can vote right here in Woodstock in the back of the community center. And the different the times are different for the different days, but every day from 12 to 3, if you don't want to look up the Ulster County Board of Elections.
So Laura, I have them right here. I'll rattle through real quick. On Saturday, the 24th, it's from 10 to 3. On Sunday, the 25th, it's from 10 to 3. On Monday, the 26th, it's from 9 to 5. On Tuesday, the 22nd, it's 12 to 8. On Wednesday, the 28th, it's 9 to 5. On Thursday, the 29th, it's 12 to 8. On Friday, the 30th, it's 9 to 5. On October 31st, Saturday, it's 10 to 3. And on Sunday, it is 10 to 3 as well. And then it'll be closed Monday in anticipation of regular voting.
Right. And so to real quick, if you forget all those times, if you remember every day, it's open from noon to 3 every one of those days. It's open more hours than that every day, but from noon to 3, you can early vote any one of those 9 days. The other reminder is when you get your ballot, remember to flip it over, because you can vote there's a library vote on the back. So remember to flip your ballot over so you make sure you see all the things you can vote on. And that's my message for today.
Anybody else have anything else?
It's going to be a couple of weeks of high anxiety as we head into the election. I hope everybody stays. What did you say?
I think we've had a few weeks prior to this of high anxiety.
Well, and it could go beyond November 3rd. It could go up beyond November 3rd. So get your medications refilled and stay cool.
Yeah, as the Queen says, keep calm and carry on.
Okay.
And Halloween we're just going to have the fire districts, right?
Thank you,
Maria. Where the kids can drive up.
Oh, tell me again, what is that, Maria?
For Halloween, I know that the fire stations are hosting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
drive by trick or treating.
Drive through, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, is that every fire station? Or
I was going to say, check their website, because I believe right now it's only company 1 in the middle of, or up in the Bearsville Flats, company 3 in Lake Hill, and company 4 in Xena. I don't believe the rescue squad or company 2 is doing it.
Okay, that's
So
what somebody asked.
it's those 3.
Bill, can you also reiterate that we're not going to have Halloween in the center of town?
Yes. Is the press listening? The annual parade, which has been a tradition for many, many years, that has been canceled. The street will not be closed down. I can't really speak for the chamber, but it sounds to me as if they're discouraging trick-or-treating. They're not really going to be doing anything for the day. So really at this point, it's just the drive-throughs. Ashley, you started to say something. Is there another firehouse?
They posted to Facebook, and those are the only 3 firehouses they listed.
Okay, so it's just those 3 at this point.
And the eastern white-tailed deer want to thank everybody for putting out all the pumpkins and gourds and all their other decorations that they've been eating up pretty quick.
My wife contributed to that cause. My
neighbor too.
Okay.
Thank you for ending on a funny note.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. And with that, I'll call for adjournment.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we have a hand up. We have a hand up. William.
I thought we were closed.
Yep. Thank you. Bill, I just need a clarification on the vote on the.
We can talk on the phone. We'll talk on the phone. Give me a call at the office.
Good night, Mr.
At
Campbell.
the office, sure.
2113 extension 17.
Got it. Thanks.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Good night. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Ashley.
Good night.